Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm going to be going over the news. All right. So this is November 1st at about almost 7:40. All right. So I've been kind of watching a few things, market and all this. One of the big things was the news announcement from the Federal Reserve about holding rates, and there wasn't too much of a perturbation on the oil market, so it's been relatively calm in the oil market. But what I do want to bring up is some of the news on Fox. All right, this is pretty telling. All right, so let's play this here.
Israel is a country that has no place on our land. We must remove that country because it constitutes a security, military, and political catastrophe to the Arab and Islamic nation and must be finished. We are not ashamed to say this with full force. We must teach Israel a lesson.
This guy is the Hamas official, Hazi Hamid.
Force. We must teach Israel a lesson, and we will do this again and again. The Alaska flood is just the first time, and there will be a second, a third, a fourth, because we have the determination, the resolve, and the capabilities to fight. The occupation must come to an end.
Occupation where? In the Gaza Strip?
No, I am talking about all the Palestinian lands.
Does that mean the annihilation of Israel?
Yes, of course. The existence of Israel is what causes all that pain, blood, and tears. It is Israel, not us. We are the victims of the occupation, period. Therefore, nobody should blame us for the things we do. On October 7th, October 10th, October 1,000,000. Everything we do is justified.
This was broadcasted on October 24th on LCD TV. All right. So it must have been some sort of Islamic Jihad TV. I don't know. But this is the reason why the military brass in Israel is saying you have to kill Hamas. You have to absolutely, positively destroy it. He is saying what I've been saying for, I don't know, 3 days now. If you don't get the job done, it's going to get worse. He just said he's going to ramp up the issue to October 1,000,000. All right? You know, and he literally stated that it's the absolute annihilation of Israel. So all these people out there, they're saying, oh, you need to slow down and do a ceasefire and do half war and, you know, have a kinder and gentler machine gun hand. No. Full war is the only way that this is going to get done. And I'm going to play through some other videos, but what you're going to see is that they are starting to get ready with Iran, Syria, and Lebanon getting involved. And it's not just going to be bombing Israel. They're going to be bombing. They're going to be bombing Jordan. They may be getting involved with Egypt. So this is going to be what's going to happen is it's not just Israel getting attacked, but there's going to be other friendly nations to Israel that will be attacked. And there's going to be a group of countries, right, that will be on the good side, you know, the allies, right? And then the axis of evil, you know, will be the bad guys. You know, you got Iran and you got Syria and you got Lebanon, right? And you have the terrorist activity that's going on with Hamas and Hezbollah. And unfortunately, the Palestinians are in the middle, but they should have pulled out the roots of Hamas 15 years ago.
Okay, so joining me now is former U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Tom Nidas is here. He left his post in July, took a job here in New York at Wells Fargo, but he just stepped down from that position to focus on what is happening now in the Middle East. Ambassador Nice, good to have you with us.
Welcome. Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you very much. Why'd you make that decision?
Listen, this is going to be potentially the next 30 days, the most important 30 days in Israel's history. How they execute the determination to get rid of Hamas. I just watched the first segment. This is why Hamas needs to end. It's exactly why Israel needs to do what they need to do to alleviate the threat of.
Get her done. Get her done.
To alleviate the threat of Hamas on Israel.
It's recycling here. I don't know why. So this is it. Come on. Come on.
The next 30 days, the most important 30 days in Israel's history. How they execute the determination to get rid of Hamas. I just watched the first segment. This is why Hamas needs to end. It's exactly why Israel needs to do what they need to do to alleviate the threat of Hamas on Israel. Second, they've got to focus on making sure that that those who were kidnapped, that are seeing themselves get out. Third, as important as anything, is making sure America has their back as it relates to what's going on with Hezbollah in the north. And finally, they've got to work on the importance of this humanitarian relief in the south. This war is not with the Palestinian people. This war is with Hamas. No one should misunderstand that. And listening to him and talk about and how he believes his only goal is to destroy the state of Israel. It wasn't about let's create a two-state solution, let's make lives better for the Palestinian people. They don't care about the lives of the Palestinian people. They care about the destruction of the state of Israel.
And we're watching what's going on there, and we know that they have headquarters underneath the Al-Shifa hospital, and that those areas are being hit. I don't want to play more of this individual that we just heard from, but he actually said we didn't want to harm civilians. There were complications on the ground on October 7th. There was a party in the area with a civilian population, he said. It was a large area, like 40 kilometers.
Is that the reason that they killed babies and ripped kids up from their parents and dragged them across the border into Gaza, and having 240 men and women and grandmas and grandpas sitting in some dreary tunnel somewhere underneath Gaza City? Really? Is the reason why they use Palestinians as human shields and hospitals and headquarters underneath it? Hamas has one issue. The one thing they care about is the destruction of the state of Israel. No one should misunderstand that. At the same time, I keep repeating, our war cannot be with the Palestinian people. The vast, vast majority of the Palestinians who live in Gaza do not like Hamas, do want to be part of Hamas. They want to live in a life that they have an opportunity and a future. This is no future with Hamas.
He's sugarcoating that bullshit. The Palestinians should have forcefully pushed Hamas out. They didn't.
This is no future with Hamas.
So now you have attacks coming from the Houthis on these, on the Yemen side of the Middle East. Also, we see these skirmishes from Hezbollah in the north. When you were ambassador just a short time ago, and you and I spent time together there, visited together briefly, did you ever imagine at that moment that this would be happening just a few months after you left that post?
Martha, I talked about this. Israel is surrounded by its enemies. If you look from the north, the south, the east, and the west, there are people who want to destroy this very small democratic state. And make no mistake that the idea of what President Biden has done by putting those ships in the Mediterranean sends a very strong message to those who want to do harm to Israel. Don't. As the president likes to say, superpowers don't bluff. And I trust the president's idea to make sure that the Hezbollah or the Houthis or the Iranians directly will not get into this because of the forcefulness of this administration. This is not a partisan conversation. The Republicans support this, the Democrats support this, and ultimately the importance to America's security. We all talk about Israel, but this is about America's security in the region. The men and women, the troops that we have all over the Middle East. So this is not just about Israel, of course, important as it is. It's also important to America and the message it says to anyone who wants to do harm to America as well as Israel.
Made these moves under Trump that they didn't, that he oversaw the operation that had Soleimani killed, and that things were quiet for quite some time after that.
Listen, I'm not going to get into partisan comments or politics. This is not what it's not. This is the most important 30 days potentially in Israel's history we're about ready to watch. This is when politics needs to be put aside. The force,
with his, experience in government as ambassador, I think that he is picking up on something that I've been sensing. And I think many people that are watching PNN, are picking up also. And that is, there's a sense of urgency, and there's a sense that this is biblical. There's a sense that this is big, and that this is not the normal thing that's going on. Now, you'll understand that when I play some of the other videos, that there is an escalation that is going to start to ramp up soon.
put aside the force of focusing on what's at stake here. There are 240 lives of people sitting in a tunnel in Gaza. We need to get those people out, and we need to stop Hamas today.
I want to talk to you about that because there are developments that have happened. Some Americans have come out through the Rafah Gate earlier today. Obviously, this is the kind of thing that you would have been overseeing at the American consulate. We have Americans who are held. So many questions that don't have answers. Who are these 35 Americans who were killed? We haven't seen pictures of them. Who are these Americans who are hostages? Are they unaccounted for, or are they hostages? We're about to hear from Alex Hogan, but let me just answer that. Why haven't we got more clarity on all of these Americans involved?
Well, this yesterday morning and today, I spoke to a bunch of the American families. It's heartbreaking. You know, I started my conversation by saying, listen, I'm not going to tell you again how sorry I am, because words don't. I mean, you've heard that enough. Let's talk about what we can do together collectively to get your loved ones out. And so this is about these families. All the families know what's going on. And obviously the United States is working full time, as Secretary Blinken is, as the president is, as the vice president is, working to try to get these hostages out, using the influence that we have with the Qataris and with the Egyptians. And you've seen a little bit of movement here, obviously, in the last 14 hours. Hopefully there'll be more to come, but there's a lot of work to do.
All right, hang with us here for a moment if you can, Ambassador. And we want to go, we were just saying the State Department has confirmed that U.S. citizens did depart, some of them, Gaza today through the Rafah Gate, crossing into Egypt. Watch this.
The situation remains extremely fluid, but this has been an important breakthrough. And we will keep working on it to ensure that all of the U.S. citizens who wish to depart safely from Gaza can do so.
So this is the Okal family of Massachusetts. They're among the hundreds of Americans stuck in Gaza right now. They say that they have run out of drinking water. They're living in fear of an imminent ground invasion. We have been in touch with their lawyer, who says that the family has not yet received any information about how they can depart. They were there visiting in Gaza, visiting family. They live, as I said, in Massachusetts. Correspondent Alex Hogan has more for us on this story, reporting live from Tel Aviv. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Martha. So what we've seen today, this is the first time that we've seen foreign national passport holders be able to leave the Strip since the start of the war about 3 weeks ago. Now, nearly a month, it's been devastating conditions for people who are still there trying to get out. And we do know that a group of Americans was part of that larger group that managed to exit going to Egypt. And the White House says it will do everything it possibly can to get all Americans out.
In the past 24 hours, we have informed U.S. citizens and their family members with whom we are in contact that they will be assigned specific departure dates. We've asked them to continue to monitor their email regularly over the next 24 to 72 hours for specific instructions about how to exit.
Well, the clock is ticking for desperate families like that one American couple that you mentioned and their baby from Massachusetts, the Opal family. They have been stuck there for 25 days now. They have gone to the Rafah crossing. They have tried to leave, but they have been unable to do so. And their attorney is calling out the Biden administration for failing to help them get out so far, saying that this really is becoming a dangerous situation for all Americans. Now, as the IDF is pressing forward in this multi-branch attack in the north, the State Department told Americans in Gaza essentially to be ready to leave. But today, we are learning that that family says that they have so far had no word from the State Department about when exactly they will be able to leave. The State Department also says that it expects to see more aid trucks to arrive in Gaza. Again, the dire conditions there, not only for foreign nationals, but of course for the civilians who are there. We are learning a lot about the tensions in the area and what negotiations will likely need to be underway to get some of those Americans out. Martha, Secretary of State Antony Blinken. And
So the American government, excuse me for interrupting, but do they consider those people to be kidnapped because they are not allowed to leave?
I don't know what the definition of kidnap is or not. They want to leave, they should be allowed to leave. And I will tell you, I know the people at the State Department. I know Tony Blinken. I know everyone is killing themselves to get out as quickly as they can. These are families. And listen, and spent an hour this morning just talking to the family, the American families who actually have hostages inside these tunnels. It's heartbreaking. We need to get these people out. Hamas are a bunch of murderers and killers. They need to be contained. We need to get the hostages out, and we need to do what Israel needs to do to eliminate the threat to the Israeli people for this never to happen again.
Let me ask you one more thing before I let you go. When you say 30 days, these 30 days are pivotal for the future of Israel. Why do you say 30 days, and what do you mean?
I mean, I just, this is going in real time, right? Every hour there's something going on. You obviously need to get the hostages out. Time is of the essence. The Israelis are moving aggressively into Gaza. Time is of the essence. The suffering, the humanitarian suffering by the Palestinians in southern Gaza also needs to be resolved. We need to get resources to them. They don't deserve to be suffering like this. They don't deserve to be killed. And consequently, that's what we need to focus on. So there's a limited amount of time. It's got to be focused on. It's going to be an exceptionally important 30 days.
Former Ambassador to Israel, Tom Rice, thank you very much, Tom. And thanks for what you're doing for these families and continuing your work here at home to help them. Thank you.
I personally think that the 30 days is the time to get operations in place for the United States to hit the Northern Front and Iran. Okay, so this is going to be, the next video is Al Jazeera.
Jordan has announced it will recall its ambassador to Israel. The government in Amman also says Israel's ambassador cannot return to Jordan. Well, that announcement comes as the Israeli military says its soldiers are at the gates of Gaza City. This is the deepest incursion since Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005. Let's find out more with Alan Fisher, who's in occupied East Jerusalem for us. So the Israelis claiming, Alan, that they're closing in on Gaza City. What more are you hearing about this?
Well, it's a pretty significant development. They have moved past Jabalia, where the refugee camp is. The gates of Gaza, they're not actual gates. This is metaphorical, but they're just about 2 kilometers further on, and that would suggest that they're moving deeper and deeper into Gaza.
I think it's important to hear, like RT and Al Jazeera and, all these different networks, to get an idea. But, if you look very carefully, that banner at the bottom, all right, Alan Fisher, where is he? In occupied East Jerusalem. Occupied East Jerusalem. The Israelis are occupying East Jerusalem, even though the fucking Temple Mount is in Jerusalem. And, you know, the Temple Mount is actually for the Jews.
Of Gaza, they're not actual gates, this is metaphorical, but they're just about 2 kilometers further on, and that would suggest that they're moving deeper and deeper into Gaza itself. A significant development announced by one of the commanders of one of the units inside Gaza. It comes as the defense minister has said recently, just in the last couple of hours, that they are making important achievements. They're aware that there have been.
Okay, so the video that I published last was about, I think it was 12 soldiers. The death count was 12 soldiers on the IDF side. Now it's 15. So, you know, just in a few hours, there was, you know, three others killed. What is interesting is that they're moving forward into Gaza City.
They're aware that there have been 15 soldiers killed within the last 24 hours. Gallant acknowledged that, saying the price is being paid on our side. But the reaction from mainly the Israeli military is that they were aware there would be casualties, and this is just the price for the operation that is ongoing. We've certainly been hearing reports of significant fighting in Gaza. Face-to-face battles is how it's been described. Hamas has claimed they've ambushed a number of Israeli fighters in their vehicles. Of course, Al Jazeera has no way of independently confirming this, but it suggests that Israel is making.
So Andrew was asking me in a previous video about the soldiers, and at that time it was 12, and he was asking me if it was in the tunnels or above ground, and it's looking like most of the casualties are coming from above ground.
That Israel is making progress further and further into the Gaza Strip, even if that progress is slightly slow.
Meanwhile, Jordan has recalled its ambassador to Israel. Just how significant of a move is this, Alan?
Of course, we've been seeing diplomatic developments like this over the last 24, 48 hours or so, but this is important. This is Jordan. This is one of Israel's neighbors, one of the few Arab countries to have those diplomatic relations. Their ambassador isn't currently in the country. He's been told he won't be going back. Israel's ambassador left Jordan, came back to Israel because of security concerns. He has been told by the Jordanians that he can't return for the time being. That is pretty significant, but it follows the moves by Bolivia on Tuesday that cut all.
They're getting ready for a war, man. They're getting ready for a much larger conflict.
Also withdrew their ambassadors from Israel.
That's a sign right there. I mean, with all the negotiations, that are going on with Qatar and supposedly Turkey, and you'll see that it looks like the Turkey negotiations are going south, you know, south of heaven. With ambassadors leaving, these countries are being told and know that there's going to be a heavier bombardment, and that this is going to flare up with Syria, Lebanon, and Iran. The United States is going in, and we're going in. We're going to probably go in hard here.
Diplomatically showing that you are upset, you're angry at what Israel is doing, but it would much more impact if it was one of the major European countries, if it was Britain, France, or perhaps even the United States that took this. So on the ground, it's not going to change much, and certainly won't change what Israel is doing in Gaza. You've heard from Benjamin Netanyahu a couple of times.
All right. Fucking clown. All right. As a journalist, right? And not saying, and maybe it's because he's on Al Jazeera, but you see this with also US news, not seeing the 4 steps that this is going to. All right. His job is to talk about the current step. But I'll tell you, I am, you know, it's that engineering mind that I have. I can see 4 steps ahead of where this is going, because of all the movement of things that are happening with the ex-ambassador talking about, you know, the 30 days being really important, the movement of the aircraft carriers into the region, the threat by the Hamas leader that they're going to continue this. And then you'll hear from the Turkey leader that he's already threatening the Christians, right? So I'm telling you, this is biblical, and it's gonna go up, and this thing is just gonna go up in flames really quick. And it's just, you could see that the ones that have been following me for 4 years, you saw the same thing at the very beginning of the first wave of the last crisis. And I was telling everyone to get ready, that it's coming, and that there was going to be, you know, serious changes in our way of life, and in some of these forced things that were going on in our country, in the United States. You know, I coined the term Bio-Patriot Act, right? I'm telling you, man, this is not benign. Their ambassadors leaving is not a benign situation. It's a malignant situation.
From Benjamin Netanyahu a couple of times over the last few days, he said there is no question of a ceasefire. Diplomatic pressure like this isn't going to change that stance.
Alan Fisher in occupied East Jerusalem, thank you very much for that update. Well, let's find out more about the mood in Israel as this war rages on and the ground incursion continues, and speak to Gil Hoffman, who's an Israeli political analyst and a former political correspondent, chief political correspondent at the Jerusalem Post. He's joining us from West Jerusalem. Thank you very much, Mr. Hoffman, for speaking to us. We've heard Israel confirming that 15 of its troops have been killed in Gaza in the last 24 hours or so. First of all, how is this playing out in Israel? How much pressure is it putting on the Netanyahu government?
It's not putting pressure on yet. The people of Israel are in a very somber mood with this word of 15 soldiers being lost, and we've been in that somber mood since that dreadful day on October 7th that started 1,400 Israelis being murdered in the abominable way in which it was done, going from house to house and murdering innocent people. That mood hasn't changed. The people of Israel are extremely upset at their government for not preventing this from happening. Netanyahu is the leader, and until this war is done, he's in charge of making sure Hamas won't be able to attack Israelis again. The moment it's done, then there'll be tremendous pressure on Netanyahu to resign for his failure in preparing Israel for this, preparing the army for this, and not preventing the infiltrations of the terrorists from Gaza into Israel.
You say the mood hasn't changed in Israel, but what about the killing of Palestinian civilians? We saw more than 100 killed in a bombing at the Jabalia refugee camp yesterday and today for what Israel says was one Hamas commander who was killed. How is Israel justifying this?
Don't you find it odd that the big crater, that they use a big bomb to kill the Hamas commander and potentially the tunnel system that was underneath the building, right? It's so odd that everyone around the crater was of military age, no women, no children. Why is that? Why is that? I'll tell you why. Because they probably were combatants there. And the reality of the situation is that they did not move out of the sector that was safe. You know, they move out of the sector that was designated as a war zone and move into a safe sector. Why didn't they do that? Right? But it's really odd that males of military age were all around the crater, no women and no children in the photographs. Why is that?
how is Israel justifying those civilian deaths? And is that resonating at all with the Israeli public?
There were 50 terrorists that were in that tunnel, and they definitely blame Hamas for deciding to build a network, a whole city really, of terror tunnels underneath where innocent Palestinian civilians live. And this should not have been tolerated. Al Jazeera has encouraged the Hamas to use
What do you
Palestinian
mean?
civilians as human shields by blaming Israel.
But how is it that when Palestinian civilians are killed, that is collective punishment? When Palestinian civilians who have nothing to do with this war are killed, we have to talk about that. How can Israel justify killing?
It's not about justification. It's about, did they get out of the way? They were warned. They didn't move. So if they get killed, it's their own fucking fault. Secondly, why did they allow for Hamas to dig in for the last 15 years? Again, their fault. The only way to solve this problem is to go full war. And when you go full war, we're not kicking the can down the road and causing a negative externality that's even worse. We've had this poor policy in the Middle East going for all the way back to the 50s, all right? But my whole life has, for this problem, has just been getting worse and worse and worse decade after decade. And these terrorists are getting unconventional weapons. They're being able to procure and create unconventional weapons. It's getting to the point where it has to be rooted out, and they have to be completely annihilated. Completely annihilated. And if they don't get out of the way, then it's their own damn fault. Sounds cold, but the reason why we are in this situation was because we listened to fucking people like her, and we have ambassadors that want to tie the hands of Israel, and you have politicians that are worried about the next election and not really worrying about this larger problem if they don't solve the problem now. You could see this in so many things, like even Social Security, right? The funding of Social Security, just kick the can down the road up to the point where, you know, the generation that has to deal with the problem ends up having to have less benefits for Social Security, all right? But we were able to spend so much money for Zelensky. It's a related it's a related problem. You keep on kicking the can down the road, but then what happens is a bunch of other problems that you have to deal with at the same time, and you no longer can adequately solve the problem. And it becomes a disaster. And this is it. There's going to be more casualties if we don't get the job done.
How can Israel justify killing these civilians in the name of eliminating Hamas?
I just said
Israel's army has done more than any army in the history of mankind to get civilians out of harm's way, from text messages and flyers and everything, and begging them to move southward out of harm's way, while the Hamas keeps on trying to insist on using them as human shield, blocking them from leaving.
Of course, they will deny that, and we have no proof of that. I just want to focus a bit more about the mood in Israel and the political mood, the war cabinet that Prime Minister Netanyahu has put together. How do Israelis view the way he's managed this, especially when we hear that some of the captives were killed in the bombing yesterday on the Jabalia refugee camp? What do Israelis make of this war cabinet and how it's managing this conflict?
We have no confirmation on any captives being killed, and we definitely don't believe whatever is put out by Hamas, and neither should the world media.
Right.
The cabinet hasn't Benny Gantz and Gadi Eisenkot, two former chiefs of the IDF, from the National Unity Party. They're there together with Netanyahu, so really representing all but a fringe of Israeli society. And while the mood against Netanyahu is very bitter and vengeful, there is an understanding that this is what we're stuck with, and it's up to them to make sure that there won't be more infiltrations and the rocket attacks and all the terrible things that Hamas has done, that has murdered too many Jews, Christians and Muslims in Israel. The amount of
And at the same time, Israel is also killing
the 30,
hundreds
40
and hundreds
that
of
are captive.
Palestinians. Mr. Hoffman, we're going to leave it there, unfortunately. We'll just leave it there because you say that why should we
I don't
blame
believe
Hamas?
this number that's on Al Jazeera, okay? All right. So we're in the third week, and the bombardments from Israel, really, you know, the heavy bombardments has only been for a week. They're saying 3,648 children. I don't think so. I don't believe that I don't think that seems like an awfully inflated number. You know what it is? Ishmael and Esau are a bunch of bullshitters. That's the problem.
That why should we believe Hamas? But again, I could tell you why should the world believe Israel's claims only when journalists even aren't being allowed into Gaza to report on what's happening there. Gil Hoffman, thank you very much for joining us on Al Jazeera.
All right, so that was Al Jazeera. Now we're going to go to CNN, brought to you by PNN.
Well, CNN has been reporting or reiterating that Israel is trying to limit any loss of civilian life in Gaza, but the rapidly mounting death toll in Gaza is making this all the more challenging. U.S. Secretary of State Tony Blinken, he's returning to Israel this week as the administration continues to stress to Israeli officials that protecting civilians is a paramount priority in all of this. CNN's Priscilla Alvarez is joining us from the White House with more on this. Priscilla, what are you hearing about this from behind the scenes? What's the questions? What's the conversation at the White House right now?
Kate, U.S. officials are keenly aware that they are facing tough questions here, and they're also walking a tightrope. They are maintaining that Israel plans to contain, or that they are at least communicating to Israel to contain casualties, to protect innocent civilians, but they're also grappling with the images of destruction in Gaza, especially after what occurred yesterday at that refugee camp, which really vividly captured the tightrope that administration officials are walking here. Now, U.S. officials are concerned, and those concerns have prompted them to ratchet up pressure on Israel to, again, contain casualties and protect those innocent civilians. And it goes all the way up to President Biden, who relayed.
Let's try to tie the Israelis' hands behind their back so we can have half war and not get the job done. Right, Mr. Biden? Right, President Biden? And what's another thing that is interesting about that large bunker buster bomb is that, to my knowledge, that's the first time that they used that munition, that level of explosiveness type munition. I could be wrong on that, but you know, that's my understanding. And so there's some intelligence that's being learned about like how to use this kind of weapon in that specific theater because of the closeness of the buildings, the quality of the buildings, because you got to remember, you know, the building codes are probably a lot more loosey-goosey in Gaza compared to, let's say, New York City, right? So that means the stability of the buildings are probably not as good. Another thing that I find really odd is that when I look at the bombed out buildings around that crater, where's the furniture? There's no furniture. I don't see the furniture. Would it just vaporize?
President Biden, who relayed concerns in his call with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over the weekend, again, telling him he has the right to defend Israel, but that the rules of war need to be followed and that they need to protect innocent civilians at all costs. But again, when we hear from U.S. officials publicly, oftentimes there is that expression of empathy, but there is also an underscoring of allowing Israel to defend itself. And take a listen to what National Security Council spokesman John Kirby had to say about that yesterday.
Unlike Russia and Ukraine, and unlike what Hamas did on the 7th of October, the killing of civilians is not a war aim of Israel. I'm not denying that it's happening. Of course it is. What I can tell you is that we have indications that they are trying. I'm not predicting that on any given day they aren't going to fail to meet their own expectations about killing civilians. Sadly, our own experience as a military over the last 20 years has shown us that even with our best intentions and all the efforts that we put in to avoiding civilian casualties, we still cause them. And it's tragic each and every time.
But you got to get the job done.
Now,
You got to
ACF
have the
doesn't believe
war.
that these warnings are delivered more effectively in private, but we are hearing more of that publicly and privately. And of course, the other reality here is that there are rifts within the own president's party about what is the support for Israel. And so all of that weighing on the White House as it also faces these difficult questions.
Priscilla at the White House for us. Thank you, John.
All right, with us now is Mark Regev, Senior Advisor to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Ambassador, thank you so much for being with us. Since the airstrike on the Jabalia refugee camp that you say was targeting a key Hamas leader, Bolivia has cut diplomatic ties with Israel. Chile and Colombia have recalled their ambassadors as a result of this airstrike. What's your reaction to that?
We took out a key Hamas commander who was involved in the butchery that we experienced on October 7th. He was a commander of the forces that raped, that burnt people alive, that massacred the young people who were at the music concert in a ravine with machine guns. He was part of an operation where parents were murdered in front of their children, and conversely, children were murdered in front of their parents. People were beheaded. This man is also responsible for the bringing back of the over 240 Israeli hostages who were kidnapped and taken to Gaza. He was a worthy target, and I'm glad that we have reached him and taken him out.
How do you explain the world reaction to the fact that 3 weeks ago, Hamas terrorists killed 1,400 people inside Israel? They're holding, as you just said, 240 hostages, you estimate by your account. Even with all that, these countries are cutting diplomatic ties with you. How do you explain that?
Well, I don't have to explain their decisions, they have to explain them. But I frankly just don't understand.
It's very simple. It's very, very simple. There is an underlying hate for Israel and Jews and Christians, right? And there is this Islamic caliphate just below the surface that's starting to boil up, starting to get out of solution, whatever analogy you want to use. And it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. Trust me on this. And, you know, like I said, the shofar couldn't be blown during the Sabbath, the first night of Rosh Hashanah. That is a bad omen. All right? For the Jewish people. On top of the ultra-liberalism that's going on in the world, has perturbed God, made God angry, especially the ultra-liberals that are specifically in Israel, all right? You know, a lot of these liberal policies come right out of these ultra-liberal Jews that are living in New York, right? And it is filtered down into the schools and into the young youth, and now you got blue hair crazies, all right? That are not even Jewish, that are causing havoc. But the point here is that the world is moving towards good and evil. There is a splitting of people, and that everyone's at fault. Everyone's getting judged, but there's also a blessing that's wrapped up in the curse that is being brought down on everybody. And this is a movement forward. This is why a lot of people are saying that this is biblical, and I maybe was one of the first to say this. I don't know, but you know, on this particular issue. But this is moving the ball forward towards a messianic era. It's a stepping stone to speeding up the process, where it most likely will not take the 216 years. Again, like I said, the messianic era happens in 3 ways. Default to 216 years from now. It's ushered in because of peaceful existence of humanity, or evil has tipped the scale and has become dominant in the world. And the Messianic era is rushed in that way. If the Messianic era is rushed when it is peaceful, in a peaceful world, then it'll come in smoothly, and it won't have destruction. If it's coming in because of the tip scale of humanity being evil, then it'll usher in through war. And that's what we're seeing here. I'm telling you, ultra liberals are a major issue with this. And it's just that the majority of the world is not on the good side. It's just not. And everyone's getting judged. Everyone's going to be punished. And there are a few people that are going to have a larger portion of the blessing. There are some people, probably a very small percentage, that will get no blessing. And then the ones that are in the middle will get, different ratio of curse and blessing.
But I frankly just don't understand what such could be based on. It's irrational. Here is a democratic country that was brutally attacked by terrorists who behaved like, to use the words of the German chancellor, who behaved like Nazis. They butchered, they massacred, they raped, they beheaded, they burnt people alive. We are fighting back against this group of terrorists, cutthroats, and so they broke up relations with us. And for people who care about the Palestinians, I know there are many people across the international community who sincerely care about the fate of the Palestinians. They have to ask, what has Hamas done for the Palestinians? It said no to any peace with Israel, no to negotiations. An extremist, militant, totally inflexible approach that says my country must be destroyed and every Israeli is a legitimate target for murder. But more than that, what have they done for the people of Gaza? They've been in power for 16 years. They've been running the Gaza Strip. They've brought pain, they've brought suffering, and they've brought impoverishment to the people of Gaza. When this is over and we've defeated Hamas, and we will, it'll be better for the people of southern Israel, of course, who won't have to live next to this terror enclave, next to Hamas and its violence and its brutality. But ultimately, it will also be better for the people of Gaza, who deserve better than this terrible terrorist regime, this ISIS on steroids regime. They deserve better too.
Do you have an estimate for how many civilians were killed in Jabalia in this airstrike?
I don't yet, but I've seen the video, and I've seen the video that you've shown the viewers on CNN, and I see a lot of men of military age. Most of the civilians, we understand, heeded our advice and evacuated the camp. And that was the facility we struck was not just a commander, there wasn't just a senior commander there, but there was also many Hamas operatives. And if we got them, that's good. We don't target civilians, we target Hamas's military machine. We target Hamas's command and control. That the Hamas-controlled Ministry of Health is saying that we've killed civilians, I'm sorry. It's possible they were caught up in the crossfire. But the way that they tell their story, and of course, once again, the Hamas-controlled Ministry of Health, it's only civilians that we've killed. That's obviously ridiculous. That's not factual.
There have been pictures that have been released of children carrying children from that, and we see images of body bags here. Are you suggesting that all of these body bags we're looking at are Hamas terrorists?
We know that there was an underground bunker there, right? And Hamas, of course, doesn't work according to a building code where they worry about civilian structures. It's possible that when we hit the underground headquarters of Hamas, that caused, because it's the underground tunnels that caused other structures to fall, right? We don't want to see collateral damage. We do our best to avoid collateral damage. It's possible it happened, and I'm very sorry. And sincerely, we don't want to see civilian casualties. We don't want to see children, definitely not, caught up in the crossfire between us and the Hamas fighters. But you know, this can finish tomorrow. This whole conflict can be over tomorrow if Hamas throws down its weapons, agrees to disarm, and returns all the hostages. Then all the fighting is over then and there. The only reason we're fighting now is because Hamas brutally attacked, invaded Israel, and butchered our people. And we're saying we won't stand for it anymore. We won't live next to this terror enclave. And as long as Hamas remains a brutal threat, we will fight it. But this can end tomorrow. Hamas just has to disarm and give back, free all the hostages. A simple solution.
There are, for the first time, people leaving Gaza through the Rafah crossing. We've seen pictures of it over the last several hours. I'm wondering what Israel's role has been in this. And we are hearing just a few minutes ago that one of the things that complicated negotiations up until this point was that Hamas wanted a guarantee that it would be able to get some of its injured fighters out of Gaza. What can you tell us about that?
So I can tell you straight away, this issue was discussed already at the very beginning of the conflict. That's more than 2 weeks ago. I remember it came up in discussions when Secretary Blinken was here on his first trip. So that's maybe 20 days ago, something like that. And we already agreed then to the exit of all the foreign passport holders, American passport holders, other passport holders. We've got no reason to keep any civilian in the Gaza Strip. It was Hamas that up until now has said no to that. It was Hamas that sort of kept them there, not as like the Israeli hostages who are in dungeons, but refused to allow these people to leave. I think if Hamas has allowed them to leave today, and only some of them I understand, it's because they're under pressure. And we're going to keep ratcheting up with that pressure until Hamas releases everyone who wants to leave Gaza and releases all our hostages, of course.
Hamas needs to be
we will
killed.
continue hitting them hard. We will destroy their military machine, and we will end their political control over Gaza. Okay. And as I said a moment ago, that's not just good for Israel, that's good for the Gazans too.
Ambassador Mark Regev, we do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being with us.
So that's CNN, and now this is NBC News talking to the IDF spokesperson.
Says it conducted multiple military operations in Jabalia, that's inside Gaza. The IDF says both of its strikes there killed Hamas terrorists, but there were civilian casualties as well. A spokesperson for the White House National Security Council said, quote, "We mourn every innocent life taken in this conflict," and added that the U.S. continues to urge Israel to minimize any harm to civilians. And joining us now is a spokesperson for the Israeli Defense Forces, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus. Colonel Conricus, I appreciate you making time to speak to us. I want to ask you first about the situation in Jabalia there. The IDF tells NBC News today that earlier Israeli fighter jets on this day struck a Hamas command and control complex in Jabalia, telling us we can confirm that Hamas terrorists were eliminated in the strike. How do you make that assertion? Can Israel provide proof that Hamas terrorists were, as the IDF says, eliminated?
Yes, hello, thank you for having me. We will issue, I think, both names and numbers, and hopefully we'll have pictures in the future as well. It's important to understand that this is a live combat zone. Jabalia is a Hamas stronghold. If you remember the days of the war in Iraq, think about Ramadi, think about the Anbar province, think about really hotbeds of terrorist activity where terrorists have had a long time to embed themselves.
You got to remember what I said in the previous video. Munich. They have special units that go and focus on targeting high-valued, terrorists, right, and killing them. And this thing has been going on ever since, Munich days in 1970s. During that hostage crisis that they had, and the killing of the hostages during the Olympics. So they're pretty damn good at doing this. So I would not be surprised that they targeted those fuckers and they dropped a major bomb on them. Was there going to be casualties? You know what? If you look at that munition that they used, and the crater that it created, you know, it's going to have such a blowout in adjacent buildings that there's going to be casualties. That's there was going to be a high casualty situation if they didn't heed their warning. You know, plus they put a tunnel system there too. You know what? Like I said, the Palestinians have been seeing Hamas digging in literally for more than 15 years. And they didn't do anything about it.
And to embed themselves within the area and under the civilians. That is Jabalia. Okay, that's the best equivalent that I could give as an example. Our troops are both on the ground, and of course, we continue to operate from the air as well. The aim is very clear and very simple: to get the civilians out and to strike Hamas,
women and children,
and its military infrastructure. And I want to emphasize, we have been calling on civilians in that specific area to evacuate for 2 weeks. Nobody can claim that they didn't know this was coming. So nobody can claim innocence.
Understood. So Colonel Conriquez, let me ask you about that specifically. I understand we saw the leaflets in northern Gaza while saying that Palestinians should flee south. Many of them did. They say they were struck, that there's no safe place. But I want to ask you, because the death toll does keep rising throughout Gaza, including Palestinian civilians in Jabalia. I understand that Israel and the U.S.'s argument is that Hamas is using Palestine.
That's such a stupid question. Of course there's going to be casualties increasing. It's going to be a cumulative situation. It's going to increase. They're not listening and moving and getting their ass out of the way.
Argument is that Hamas is using Palestinians as human shields, but where does Israel draw the line? How many civilian casualties is Israel comfortable with to justify the targeting of Hamas terrorists?
So we will always try to apply a proportionality and to think about necessity, right? What is necessary to strike? What can be achieved by doing a certain action? And then what is the price that is paid by non-combatants, okay?
So what is that? What is that perspective then, just so I understand when you say proportionality?
Yes, obviously there is no cookie cutter formula, X equals 2Y. There isn't such a thing, and no military ever said such a thing because it doesn't exist. Everything is on a case-to-case basis where we make an assessment of what the target, what the value of the military activity is, and then we try to balance that with what we assess the collateral damage or the adverse effects on civilians will be. In order to create a better situation, in order not to have civilians influenced, we have called ahead, we have told them to evacuate, and it's been 2 weeks. So I think any claims towards Israel regarding striking non-combatants should first and foremost start with the fact that we have asked them not to be there.
But Colonel, because you know full well the way that the Arab world sees this, and even part of the Western world sees it as well. There has been tougher language from some, even at the White House, that I cover on a day-to-day basis. And while they stand with Israel's right to defend itself right now, they are concerned about the growing number of civilian casualties there. So recognizing the need to root out Hamas militants, I think the question remains open about where that line is. Does Israel see anything that has occurred in the course of the last 24 hours and have some concern that too many civilians have died there? Do you concede that dozens, if not hundreds, of Palestinian civilians have died there?
No, I do not. And I would urge anybody reporting on the matter to be very careful and professional, not to rely on data disseminated by Hamas. They have been caught lying twice in this war already.
But understand, to this point, understood, I apologize for
that. So let me just finish that. Let me just finish that. So it has to be clear. We aren't fighting against the civilians. We have made that clear from the beginning. Hamas is using them as human shields. They have embedded their military infrastructure underneath where the civilians are. And in order for us to be able to perform our mission, which is to rid Gaza of Hamas and to ensure the safety of our communities, we have to get that where the combatants are. There's no magic way of getting to the enemy, which is hiding underground, without going through what is above ground. If anybody in the world has an enlightened way of doing that, please do tell. We would be grateful to do this in a swifter and better way. It doesn't exist because that is how Hamas has populated the area, and that is how Hamas is using them as human shields. We will try Yeah, we won't target civilians. We never do. And they should be out of that area, out of the concern of their own safety.
But I guess I understand they don't target civilians, would you?
I have a news announcement here. The Minuteman #3, all right, which is a missile system, ballistic missile system, self-defense, Minuteman, quote, self-destructs during a test, okay? So that's the US. So you've been hearing in the news lately some testing of, higher powered kind of a nuclear weapon, right? B61, I think is what they call it, or something like that. And other missile systems being tested. All right. And this is on the U.S. side. Now, sometimes you may hear in the news that something blew up, that it didn't work. That may be false information, and it might have worked. Right. In some cases, these announcements are true and they didn't work. I don't know about this Minuteman #3 defense test, missile test by the United States. If it really did self-destruct or if it, did what it was supposed to do. You don't know if there's a little bit of a disinformation campaign to hide what our capability is. That does happen. But the bigger issue here is that the United States is developing stuff developing stuff that is to protect and to create an offense, because we're moving into a global conflict. You need to pay attention. I'm being very serious here, very, very serious. As serious as during the the crazy stuff that we went through, and I was very correct, on the last crisis. So you need to listen to me. You need to listen to me very, very carefully. All right. This world is rapidly, every day, moving towards nuclear detonation. All right. Now that may be tactical. It may be, continental ballistic level. I suspect it'll be tactical. But the bottom line here is that we are moving towards rapidly a Cuban Missile kind of crisis, but times 10. All right. It's going to be a magnitude much larger, because it's going to be not just Russia, moving, the Soviet Union moving missiles, into Cuba. All right. And we, use U-2 spy planes to find them. Right. This is more Middle Eastern biblical conflict and a 3-front war, one in Europe, one in Asia, and one in the Middle East. This is getting very serious, and you need to pay attention to me on how to navigate through this. All right. Don't be fearful. Don't be fearful. Let me repeat that. Do not be fearful. The moment you are fearful, you have already been captured on the evil side. The ones that are on the evil side are going to be punished, and you're going to be punished severely. Now, there's going to be different levels of punishment. There's going to be a punishment that's on this level, this plane, and there's going to be a punishment on a more divine or higher plane. Do not be fearful. And another thing is that don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to let that divine hand in the events. If you're not fearful and you're on the side of good, you'll be protected. If you're evil and you're fearful, you're not going to be protected. All right? Through this whole curse that's going to be pushed on earth, right? And it's going to rapidly happen. There's also a blessing in that. And the ones that are, better people, right? And the ones that aren't fearful and are trusting this guiding hand, will fare much better. Now it sounds very, messianic that I'm saying, and very, biblical, and it doesn't fit the normal Aristotelian kind of, mentality, right? But this world is rapidly getting crazy. All right. And a lot of things are going to be happening. And again, there's this divine hand that's involved in this, because God is upset with mankind. He's upset with the Palestinians. He's upset with Hamas. He's upset with the Israelis. He's upset with the Americans. He's upset with the Jews. He's upset with the Muslims and the Christians. He's upset with everybody, but not equally. All right. And there's going to be these tests to determine who's on the good side and who's not on the bad side. Don't be fearful, but this world is moving to a crisis.
Yes, I understand that you don't target civilians, but even if you're targeting Hamas leaders, Hamas fighters, Hamas terrorists, if you know that civilians are there and they were given weeks warning, if they're still there, I think that's part of the dilemma that the world is watching right now. Let me ask you about a small number of Palestinians and foreign nationals who we learned today were able finally to leave Gaza. Thousands of others, of course, remain stuck. Where are they safe to go within Gaza without fear of Israeli strikes?
Gaza is a war zone. It's a war zone because Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th. Let's keep that in mind in each and every reporting of the object.
Understood here that assault was awful and beyond compare. Where should they go, though, for those civilians? Where do the innocent civilians go?
Indeed, in order to care for those people, which, as you say, are not related to fighting, there is a humanitarian zone northwest of Khan Yunis, which is in southern Gaza. It's called El Muassi, which is along the coast. That is a humanitarian zone that we have established, an area which is the safest place to be in Gaza. Wherever Hamas is, wherever their commanders are, whatever infrastructure they're using, we will strike those locations.
Now, I'm positive that location he just announced wasn't the first time that the Israelis have announced this. So why aren't the Gazans moving their ass to the safe zone? I'm telling you, to do this right, you need to level the place and root out the terror.
We will strike those locations because those are the combat capabilities of the enemy. We have said that there's a humanitarian zone, and we hope that won't be contaminated by Hamas as well.
So can you guarantee that there will be no strikes in that humanitarian zone?
What I can guarantee is that we only target Hamas, and if Hamas won't contaminate that area too, then of course we will not strike the purpose of having a humanitarian zone. That is why we established it, out of a concern for the safety of civilians.
Colonel Conricus, let me ask you, if I can, very quickly about some video on social media that shows Palestinians being beaten by IDF soldiers in the West Bank. We're choosing not to show it right now because it's graphic, but it appears to dragging at least one person whose legs are tied, his face is covered. The IDF itself has called that footage deplorable, that it does not comply with the Army's order. What can you tell us about the latest on that investigation, and if there are any other investigations now open by the IDF into its own forces?
As you said, deplorable and not according to our values, investigated. The people responsible will be held accountable, as they are always, and there will be corrections made. We have issued clarification statements. Commanders have said it in their own voice. 2 soldiers behave according to the law of armed conflict, behave as soldiers, professional soldiers should behave. Be professional, stern, yet be humane. And that does not represent nor our values nor our other troops. It is a freak incident which is being investigated, and steps will be taken against those responsible for it.
Are there any other investigations? Last question. Any other investigations open right now, or is that it?
No, we have other investigations looking into reports of unprofessional conduct by troops. There is zero tolerance for it. We understand very well that this is exactly what Israel haters, anti-Semites, and Hamas supporters around the world will be looking for in order to amplify. We have no tolerance for it, and it will not continue.
Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Kornikas with the Israeli Defense Forces. We appreciate you.
The sad thing is that you're in battle, right? And some of your troops are going to do things that, and this is in all war, do things that are literally war crimes, right? So if any of the IDF did a war crime, they should be prosecuted, for war crimes. I don't think it's systemic. And it happens in all war with both sides, of the battlefield. And it's something that is a problem. And the United States has done it during, while we were in Iraq and in Afghanistan. And the Taliban has done it too. There is such a thing as war crimes. And this thing that they're talking about is a war crime. The civilian casualties, especially when you're, begging them to leave for 2 weeks, it's not a war crime. So, you got to call it the way it is. And in that case, those IDF soldiers did a war crime. 2 of them, I think they said 2 of them did, or whatever. I haven't been following that. I need to get a little bit more up to speed on what happened. But investigating it and condemning it and having a some sort of process, some sort of judicial system that prosecutes these soldiers is in order. Right? It happens in all war on both sides. But I doubt that this is systemic. And just like what the colonel did say, they don't want to play into the hand of the propaganda, right? So most likely this is a tail event, very low probability, low incident kind of event, and it's not systemic. So that's my take on that particular issue. So those are the videos that I have to show. This is ABC Live. No, I don't think that there's anything really. I think I was just watching the live feed. And then there's an Israeli live feed that I'll probably do a video on. But that's my coverage for this recording. Please subscribe to all my channels. I have 3 YouTube channels. The links are in the description of this video. I also have Rumble, Bitchute, and Brighteon. Links are in the description of this video. Please subscribe to all 6 channels. That way you are able to get a notification on my work. If you would like to help support my news coverage, you can donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video. Go to the homepage, and at the very bottom, there are 2 links. You can donate through Stripe or PayPal. You can also donate through Buy Me a Coffee. The link is in the description of this video. This is especially useful if you're an international viewer and you would like to support my work and you can't get my products from my store. For the domestic audience, you can also donate, but you can also purchase my products on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Link is in the description, and get the products that I offer and follow the protocol that I have. It's an anti-aging protocol, and it will boost your immune system. Some of the products that I have on the store are silver soaps. So this is a structural nano silver soap. This helps to neutralize pathogens, but it's a high quality soap. I have 5 different versions of it. So go to the store and take a look at it. I have structural nano silver lozenges and drops. The lozenges are in a 20 count bag. and I have it in sweet menthol and in green apple. And then I have in the drops, which is in a 100 count bag, blueberry, and the other flavor is honey lemon. I have structural nano silver gel. This is great to improve your skin as a skin care product, and you just leave it on your skin overnight, and you'll notice that your skin is clearer, and it's tight. It tightens the skin, especially on the face. In addition, this helps to heal cuts, abrasions, minor burns. It heals them about a third quicker, about 30% quicker. This also neutralizes pathogens. So what you do is that if, let's say, you're going through the cold season or a crisis, you put the gel on your hand. It's way better than Perel. It stays active for 5 hours. You put it around your mouth, right, and lightly coat your nostrils and around your nose, and lightly coat your ears and your ear canal, and lightly coat your eyes. Then it'll help to prevent getting pathogens. You can't do that with Perel. This product is high quality. I have a toothpaste. It's a structural nano silver toothpaste. It does not have fluoride in it. This is a very high quality toothpaste. It's the best toothpaste that you're going to be able to get. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get a few tubes of this. And that will help to support my work and help to support your oral hygiene. I have partnered up with Rainbow Herbals, and we've developed these detox deodorant bars, high quality ingredients, all natural, coming from the Himalayas, essential oil. They're made from essential oils, extremely high quality, and it has no aluminum in it. It'll help to detox your body, and not only that, it is used as a deodorant. So use this every day. I have it in citrus, and I have it in peppermint tea tree. I also have products like lignans. This is a powder that you can put in water or in something that's soft. I put it in a smoothie. Some people put it in yogurt. Other people put it in hummus. I put it in hummus. So this will help with hormonal health and boost up your immune system. This is for males and females. I have a great multivitamin that is easily digested. All right, this is a product that you need, because there's the minerals and vitamins are cofactors for cellular processes. All right, for enzymes. And if you don't have those cofactors, you're going to be subpar in your metabolism. I also have products like C60, which is a very strong antioxidant. I sell it in coconut, avocado, right? So coconut oil and avocado oil. And you can get it in 2 ounce, the 4 ounce, or the 8 ounce bottle. It's a very strong antioxidant. It neutralizes the reactive oxygen species and boosts up the health of the cell and increases the health of the mitochondria, which allows for the ATP to be generated. So you'll have more energy, and the cell will be healthier, because what you're doing is you're reducing that cellular stress. So you're working at the cellular level. Strong antioxidants have been known to slow down aging and to improve your immune system. So if you're chronically low on ATP, you won't have the energy to have a good immune system. And this is part of the reason, not the only reason, part of the reason when you get older, when your immune system starts to go down. It's not the only reason, but it's part of the reason. I also have liquids, and I take Max 35 every day. Take a teaspoon of that. It's a liquid. It's a structural nano silver. And what it is that you gargle with it, you swish it in your mouth for about 20 seconds, swallow it. And what will happen is that you're neutralizing the pathogens that are in your upper oral cavity and down your esophagus, and keeping the barrier, that mucosal barrier, healthy, and maintaining that aminoglobulin A barrier. So you have a healthier upper respiratory and upper oral cavity to neutralize pathogens and reduce the chances of getting sick. All right. So you take that every day. If you start to feel sick, right, then you take a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons. So there are many products on the store. Please go to the store and get those and follow my protocol. It's very simple. Neutralize pathogens with structural nanosilver. Minimize, neutralize the reactive oxygen species by taking C60, and bring down that inflammation by taking turmeric and ashwagandha. When you do that, you're going to slow down the aging process. And then I have collagen to help with your skin care. I have B vitamins that are important cofactors for the electron transport chain to help boost your energy and help with the immune system, right? Zinc and magnesium and vitamin C and D3. These are all really important supplements. I also have Goodnight formula that has tryptophan and melatonin in it that allows you to get the proper sleep cycles that you need. You need 3 REM cycles to help detoxify your body, consolidate memory, and feel well rested. And when you do that, you're going to improve your health. You know, it's about proper diet, proper exercise, proper supplementation, proper challenging of your brain, you know, reading, writing, talking to people, and proper sleep. So take my advice and follow my protocol. Get the products from my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and improve your health. Thank you for listening and have a nice night. And again, don't be fearful. Take stock in yourself and in your family and see how you can be a better person, you know, where we all can improve somehow, some way. And doing that will get you on the good side. We're all getting judged. Thank you for listening and have a nice night.